What's going on, everyone? I am doing a little bit of a different style of training today. I'm working up to 3 sets of 5. It's unscheduled, it's not on my programming, and I've actually been doing programming for 2 months now, as some of you may be aware. I've been seeing pretty good results with that program, and it's the Texas method. I've decided that this week I'm going to just mix things up a little bit and try some different rep ranges, because I've really just been working within the 5 rep range for the past 2 months. Prior to doing the Texas method, I was doing a more Bulgarian style of training, which is really just to say more frequency. I was squatting maybe 4 upwards to 6 times a week, and really not working too much above, say, 70% of my max. What I'd like to do today is first show you the training session, and secondly, I'm actually going to touch on some really great squat tips that have helped me a lot. And I'll give you just a quick rundown of my story here. So I've only been doing powerlifting for, I'd say, about 2 years now. I started, initially I was on a weight loss journey. I put on a ton of weight, and then I decided I need to just lose all of that. It was holding me back in life. So basically I did a bunch of bodybuilding, I did cardio, I ran, I did all sorts of stuff. I got all nice and jacked and had the abs going, and I was really pleased with it. But then I decided I needed to get stronger. So basically I started powerlifting, and that was about 2 years ago. When I first put a squat bar on my back, I swear I had never really squatted at a younger age. I mostly just did sports like football, and I did 9 years of taekwondo. I did lots of different activities, but I never practiced strength training. So about 2 years ago, I put a squat bar on my back, and I tell you right now, I started with 135 pounds, and I was doing that for between 5 to 10 reps. And then shortly after I worked my way up to 200 pounds, I was stuck at 225 pounds, 2 plates for a while. So basically I started just applying different training methods. I hired a trainer, Omar Isaf, he has a YouTube channel. I spoke with many other fitness athletes and basically just focused on improving my strength. So over the past 2 years, I basically have been able to increase my squat from what once was a 225 pound, 2-plate squat, up to, I'm just about to attempt in the coming weeks or in about a month or so, a 500 pound squat. So I've almost increased my squat by about 300 pounds in about 2 years. The first year I went from 200, I was basically went up to about 315 pounds I was able to do. And then within the past year, I literally went from doing a single friggin' rep, 315 pounds, to being able to do 405 pounds for 1 rep, which I thought was wow, that's freaking amazing. I actually did a YouTube video where I talked about how I was just so blown away and humbled by the fact that I was able to move that weight. So basically now I'd like to continue challenging myself, and that 405 pounds, shortly after, within several months later, I was able to do that for reps. I could probably do 405 pounds now. I would say up to 10 reps. So I'm really pleased with my progress, and I'd like to share with you how I accomplished much of this. So without further ado, I'm going to get into some really quick squat tips, and then we're going to get into the session. So one of the most important tips I'd like to address for squatting is the ability to get stacked. And what that means is you're basically bracing your core and allowing your core and your entire spinal column, your upper body, to stack itself, to prepare for a huge load. There's a big problem when people squat is that they have too much internal shoulder rotation, too much kyphosis of the shoulders basically, where they're causing this upper back rounding. So when the bar comes on their back, they're immediately in an upper back rounded position. So when you come down into the squat, you end up having this load pushing down, and it's going to force you forward. You're going to have to compensate and turn that movement into a back lift or a good morning to get that weight back into position and maintain your bar path. So I'm going to show you really quickly an exercise. It's called stomach vacuuming, and then you can call it filling your belly with air. Initially you want to suck in your gut from your belly button right to the back of your spine. I'm going to show you that right now. You release all the air. And then you want to fill the core and just load it up with air. Imagine you're pushing your stomach out underneath your rib cage, and this is all called your lower dan chen. Or you could say it's your chi flow, and it's your energy flow. So right from your sternum and your solar plex, your life force center, you want to maintain uprightness and fill this core. So let me show you right now. So from a vacuum position, straighten up. Good to go. That's how you maintain a stacked position. Do you think I'd be able to handle a bigger load with my stomach completely protruded out, my full core braced with air, and my abdominals flexed? Or do you think I'd have more of a chance with an upper back grounded position and no bracing of the core? It's not going to work. So that's one of the main tips that's helped me tons for squatting, is making sure that you get stacked when you're performing the movement. Because if you don't, once you get up into that higher weight range, once you get to like 80 or 90% of your max, that load is going to collapse you forward. So you need to maintain as upright as you possibly can to keep a good bar path and to perform the movement. That's tip number one. Let's get into some more. So I felt pretty good on the day overall, mobility-wise, not too bad. Probably sitting at around like an 85–90%. A little bit of discomfort still in my left hip, and it sort of translates down to my left knee. And you know, that can tend to happen just from general tightness and, you know, if I don't spend too much time mobilizing and warming up. But on this day, you know, I felt pretty good overall. So I just basically got straight to the workout and just used my warm-ups as the warm-up, as you can see here. And I wasn't having too much difficulty with breaking depth. For me, it was more just, and you'll see on the heavier sets, my left knee, actually both my knees really collapsing a little bit when I'm coming out of the hole. So we're in the middle of our warm-ups, and I'd like to show you the second squat tip, which has to do with feet positioning. And a few people have either messaged me or just like asked me in person or commented on a video asking about optimal feet placement. Now this varies from person to person, and obviously it varies depending on your limb lengths, you know, the width of your shoulders, all sorts of things really play a factor here. So I like to stress that find that comfort zone for yourself and then place your feet there. So wherever you perform the movement best. But one thing I'd like to note about this, and I'm going to show you as I'm doing this warm-up here at 315 pounds, I'm going to show you the two different feet placements. One is a little bit wider, with the feet slightly flared out more, and the other one is slightly more narrow, and the feet are a little bit straighter. Now, the difference between these two, I guess it really would depend on where your strengths are. So if you have strong hips that can handle a big load, you can go to a wider stance, and doing the wider stance, it allows you to stay a little bit more upright in your squat. If you go with a more narrow stance, you may have to tip over a little bit, especially if you're doing low bar. So it really would depend if you're doing low or high bar, and again, depending on the strength of your hips and your mobility. Personally, I feel stronger in a closer stance, and I like to use the cue that I'm screwing my feet out. So I get into a somewhat narrow stance, a little bit flared, and I cue to screw the feet outwards. Now when I'm in a wider stance, which I actually did this in competition, it's because my mobility was just shot for the day. And wider stances are more common for geared lifting. Like if you're wearing the full singlet, the squat suit, then it's pretty common because those are the bigger guys. You know, they'll even wear wraps and stuff. They go with a wide stance and they sit back on their heels and really sit back into the squat. But on a standard squatting movement, I don't think you need to do this, especially if you're not geared in wraps and doing competition. Just try a slightly more narrow stance and then allow your knees to traverse outwards, you know, when you're going down and breaking depth. So let's show you this right now. So here is the narrow stance. You can see my feet are roughly shoulder width apart, slightly flared out, and I'm going to come down. See, I've allowed my knees to traverse outwards, and now I can come back up. If I was to go with a wider stance, my knees may not go as far out, but my hips, they'll be more open, and I'll be sitting more upright. But give it a shot and see what feels comfortable for you. So there you can get a sense of my breathing, and generally what I like to do is, as mentioned earlier in the video, fill my belly, fill the core with air, brace the core, get into that stacked position, and then perform the what's called a Valsalva Maneuver, which is where you're basically putting your tongue to the roof of your mouth and holding that air and, you know, performing the movement. Actually, usually if I'm overly exerting myself on the rep, what I'll do is exhale just a little bit of that air as I'm ascending, and usually it's around the 3/4 point of the movement that I'll do that. You don't want to let it out too early because then you lose tightness, and that's never a good idea. But I hope these tips helped you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.